The Department of Transportation is requesting $26.7 billion in discretionary budget authority for fiscal 26. This request includes a $1.2 billion increase for air traffic modernization and operations, $596 million to ramp up our port and shipyard infrastructure, a $400 million boost for freight rail safety, and $770 million for multimodal freight expansion. While the skinny budget request demonstrates your commitment to making some critical investments to modernize our transportation systems, there's still much about this request that remains unknown as we await the full fiscal 26 budget. We do not know your total of $1.4 billion in cuts at DOT to afford these programmatic increases at the $26.7 billion top-line level. We're also lacking detail in what the proposed $4.1 billion reduction to the IIJA FY26 advance appropriations. We'd like to get more from you on that today. I'd be remiss not to mention that the skinny budget reveals a top line for the Department of Housing and Urban Development that will be challenging for this subcommittee, to say the least. Given the jurisdiction of the subcommittee, we cannot look at the DOT budget request in a vacuum. We'll have to make some tough choices when reviewing the proposed investments of the Department of Transportation while maintaining necessary support for housing our nation's most vulnerable. I'd also like to make sure we address a bit of an elephant in the room. The administration has undertaken efforts to seriously overhaul the federal bureaucracy while also taking a hard look at where our taxpayer dollars are being spent. It's a valiant effort that our House majority supports. I want to make something clear. Efforts to restructure the Department of Transportation without congressional approval, to not execute programs appropriated by this committee, or to not give proper congressional notification when awarding or amending grants concerns me. Article 1 of the Constitution is clear. It gives Congress, through this committee, the power of the purse. I know that you, as a former member of this body, understand this. We want to have a partnership with you to ensure we're providing DOT with necessary resources. It's a reciprocal relationship. We provide what you need, you get us what we need. Maintaining open lines of communication between this committee and your staff is essential for us to execute on our shared mission of maintaining our world-class transportation system. Safety will remain a top priority for this subcommittee as we prepare the 26 bill. I know you share this goal, as your second night on the job was the horrific DCA collision. You've taken swift action to ensure the safety of our airspace, and I know the NTSB appreciates your partnership as they continue their investigation into that accident and many others. Additionally, our nation's air traffic control system is showing signs of age. The telecommunications issues that have been plaguing Newark and routinely interrupting operations over the past month are unacceptable, and the fact that they were allowed to get to this point over the past several years is beyond frustrating. Mr. Secretary, I look forward to working with you to prioritize our nation's vital infrastructure and transportation needs in Arkansas's 3rd District and across the country while safeguarding hard-earned taxpayer dollars. I know our work on this subcommittee affects the safety, economic opportunity, and quality of life of every American, a duty I take seriously. The jurisdiction of this committee is one of the most unique of the Appropriations Committee, as its impacts are seen in every single congressional district around the country. As such, we have a spirit of bipartisanship here that I look forward to continuing as we begin the FY26 process. And it's in that spirit of bipartisanship that I'd now like to recognize my dear friend and the ranking member from South Carolina, Mr. Clyburn, for any opening remarks he'd like to make.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to be here today as we begin to assess the budget request for fiscal year 2026. I, too, want to welcome Secretary Duffy to his first official hearing before the subcommittee. Welcome. Today, we will examine the Department of Transportation's budget, which I expect will cover current year operations and the proposed use of funds included in the so-called skinny budget for 2026. DOT's primary mission is to invest in solutions that improve transportation safety. This includes safer transportation in our skies, on our rails, in our ports, and over and under our bridges, among other modes of transportation. It is hard to ignore the disturbing incursions and devastating crashes that have disrupted the lives and livelihoods of too many at our airports just this year, following the tragic Francis Scott Key bridge collapse in Baltimore last year. The bipartisan infrastructure law makes a significant 5-year investment in our nation's transportation systems, whether it's helping to build new runways, repair deficient bridges, or improve our ports. These historic investments are intended to enhance safety, employ American businesses, put more people to work, and create new public-private partnerships. This law, combined with targeted investments through the annual THUD bill, was supposed to serve as a catalyst for our economy and quality of life. However, I'm deeply concerned that this administration's deliberate withholding of more than $40 billion provided by laws approved by this subcommittee and reductions to DOT's workforce halt any meaningful progress in transportation safety. Instead, we see thousands of qualified federal workers and contractors, including air traffic controllers, made up of women, people of color, and veterans, pushed out of highly skilled jobs. While I strongly support the need for robust investments in aviation safety, we have yet to see the full potential of existing resources being used to address our most immediate threats to brought forward by aging technology and staffing shortfalls at the FAA. Last week's air traffic control modernization plan released by the administration is a great start, but it ignores the realities of cuts to FAA staff, fair competition, and overall costs, and most importantly, how we pay for it. Americans are afraid of flying, controllers are walking off their jobs, and aviation businesses are hurting. This plan seems to ignore the realities of the FAA, losing more than 2,000 employees this year, and assumes project timelines not yet defined by costs, access to materials, or feasibility. But we need to know that it is backed by action and by an administration that will deploy congressionally directed funding for America's transportation in an expeditious manner, consistent with congressional intent. Mr. Secretary, I would be derelict in my duties to my constituents and children were I not to address the significant issue you raised in your submitted statement. During World War II, the DEI program that created the Tuskegee Airmen, who because of existing laws were all black, was not a waste of money. They made the skies safer for those all-white fighter pilots they escorted, and we won that war. The DEI program that created the women of the 688, who because of existing laws were all black, was not a waste of money. And they made the war experiences more palatable for those all-white fighting units that they efficiently and effectively supported during World War II. Both these groups were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by this body for their service to this country. Mr. Chairman, in 2 weeks, I will be hosting several of our colleagues during Memorial Day weekend down in Charleston, South Carolina, where that sacred holiday was first celebrated back in 1865 by the all-black 54th and 55th Massachusetts Regiment, who were commanded by Colonel Robert Gould Shaw and Colonel Charles Fox, both of whom were white because of existing law. Mr. Secretary, I believe this subcommittee can work in a bipartisan fashion to deliver safer transportation networks for the American people, and I look forward to hearing from you about how we can best serve America's resources and talents to build a safer and more secure country. And I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Clyburn. Before I recognize the chairman of the full committee, let me acknowledge the presence here in this hearing room of the parents of First Officer of Flight 5342, Sam Lilly. Tim and Sherry, we share our deepest condolences for your loss. I want to thank you for being here. Sam's legacy lives on in your efforts here in advocating for safer skies. Please know this work is not in vain. We hear you, and we will make sure to do right by you and your son in our work to invest in our aviation system. We welcome you to the proceedings here this morning. And now the full committee chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, my good friend from the great state of Oklahoma, Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin my formal remarks, I want to associate myself with your remarks about our guests here, and we want to thank you very much. We share your grief and your loss, terrible situation. We appreciate you turning it to such a positive message and advocacy to try and make the sky safer. I know Tim would have been enormously proud of what you're doing right now. So thank you again for being here. It's an honor to have you in this committee room with all the rest of us. And again, before my formal remarks, I got to tell you, Mr. Secretary, and I say that with great pleasure, it is wonderful to have you there. It's wonderful to see the energy you're approaching your job with, the commitment. I'm very proud of you as a former colleague and look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead. Thank you, Chairman Warmack, and thank you, Ranking Member Clyburn. Again, I want to welcome the Secretary. It's very good to have him back, even if it's on the other side of the Chamber's dais. Thank you for appearing before us today. We're focused here today on ensuring that the FAA and our other safety agencies have the resources necessary to prevent future tragedies. It's one of the most significant duties we have, and we do not take it lightly on either side of the aisle. As we advance the fiscal year to 2026 process, effective investments in our nation's transportation systems are a priority. Secretary Duffy's team at DOT has already made great efforts to ensure we are directing taxpayer dollars to infrastructure and safety improvements that are worthwhile, taking a fine-tooth comb to thousands of funding decisions made by the previous administration. This subcommittee will further these efforts as we look at the FY26 bill, making sure we support programs that improve infrastructure while taking a hard look at those programs that are wasteful and duplicative. But make no mistake, the fiscal discipline will not come at the price of safety, and we will continue to ensure safety is an utmost priority in the FY26 THUD bill. In my opinion, there's no greater example of carrying out that mission than at the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. In our final FY25 appropriations, we provided funding to train an additional 2,000 air traffic controllers. I want to work with you, Mr. Secretary, to ensure that we sustain this training surge in Oklahoma City. We have the land, the facilities, and the world-class staff at the Monroney Center to ensure that controllers receive in-person, focused, state-of-the-art training. I also believe the center provides terrific value to the taxpayer. We'll continue to support the FAA's modernization efforts and oppose any attempt to decentralize or weaken controller training. I'll also reiterate my steadfast commitment to ensure that the 2026 THUD bill prioritizes investments in tribal and rural areas. Nearly 70% of America's road miles are in rural areas, and about 145,000 miles of roads pass through tribal lands. These communities face notable challenges and have different needs from urban areas. As we begin the appropriations process, I'm resolute in my commitment to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to fund the critical safety missions and transportation infrastructure needs of the country. Thank you, Chairman Warmack, and with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. The ranking member of the full committee will probably participate at some point in time today. We do have other hearings going on. I don't think that she is wishing to give an opening statement, but we'll inject her into the Q&A when she arrives. And with that, Mr. Secretary, welcome once again to the subcommittee. We're going to accept your written testimony for the record, and we'll yield the floor to you. Thank you.
Chairman Womack, Ranking Member Clyburn, Chairman Cole, thank you all for inviting me to this subcommittee, as well as all the subcommittee members. I think it's been about 6 years since I've been back to the House. It's a pleasure to see you all. I'm not sure if there was some plan to bring the greatest voices of the House together in Womack and Clyburn, but you guys, great voices. It was made for media, I think. My aim over the course of this hearing is to provide you with a sense of how building big, beautiful infrastructure is a top priority of President Trump's priorities, and how we can all work together in a bipartisan effort to make that a reality. The infrastructure that connects our people, our states, moves our products is a priority of the president. Our department over the course of the last 100 days have saved taxpayers roughly $9.5 billion. Those savings include monies pulled from projects tied to social justice, to climate requirements, also boondoggle projects, as well as bringing efficiencies to the department. Now, many of you have asked me about grants and grant agreements and grant announcements. So just to be clear on this point, we have inherited an unprecedented backlog of 3,200 awards for grants that were announced by the last administration. However, those 3,200 were left to me to do the grant agreements on. So the announcement is fun, but the work is really the grant agreement. So there's 3,200 that have been passed off to me. Those are the ones that all of you love to call me on. And by the way, we're working through that backlog. Many of these projects of the 3,200 date back to 2022. The last administration, they were unorganized, they were unfocused, as projects around the country were stalled by inaction and inefficiencies. No one is more frustrated with the inefficiencies of this process than I am. Currently, there are 10 to 14 different systems to track the status of grants across the Department of Transportation. There's not one system, there's 10 to 14 systems that are used to track grants. I'm committed to consolidating all of this information into one dashboard so grantees can see how money is being spent. All of you can see the progress of grants. I want to bring you that transparency, but that's also consolidating the system in which the DOT uses to provide that information to all of you and to the American people. I promise to ensure that transparency as we move through this process. The Department of Transportation is one of the few non-defense federal agencies to receive an increase in funding under President Trump's fiscal year 26 budget. The reason is simple. The president, he's a builder. He loves to build, and he wants to build at DOT. Our budget carefully focuses taxpayer resources on items critical to our most fundamental mission of safety and investing in transportation infrastructure. We have pushed forward with the approval of 405 grants totaling $4.9 billion in the president's 100-plus days in office. The president's budget of $26.7 billion in new discretionary funding for 2026 is a $1.5 billion increase over 2025, or it's 5.8% as an increase, which I'm proud to see that we have. We do not want to take additional funds from hardworking taxpayers for granted in this era of government where it's become too big, too inefficient, and too wasteful. We have carefully planned for these dollars to fund urgent projects that, once built, will serve future generations for decades and I think build and make this country stronger. And so I'm sure you're going to ask me questions, as Mr. Clyburn indicated, what's going on with staffing cuts. We are going to try to make the Department of Transportation more efficient, do more with less. I'm happy to talk about that. Also, want to discuss Newark. We are working through the telecom infrastructure upgrade to take care of the delays. As we speak right now, the FAA has brought in together all of the airlines who serve Newark to have a conversation about how there can be a delayed reduction. So if you book your flight, that flight's going to fly. You don't have people at the airport for 2, 4, 6 hours, then a flight canceled. So we're working through that now. Hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have additional really good news about the telecom progress that we've made. And happy to talk about the air traffic control system that we announced last week. And finally, I know my time is over, but I do want to say thank you to Tim and Sherry for coming. I've appreciated their support. I've gotten to know them since January 29th and the loss of their son Sam, and they have been a force for good. And I'm grateful for their partnership. I'm grateful they're coming here today, and I think this is a moment where we're trying to pay what happened in late January. We're trying to pay it forward to make sure we don't have another set of families of 67 people that have to fight to make sure they have a system that's going to work. So thank you for being here, and to the committee, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to take the committee's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We're going to begin the Q&A portion. Members will have 5 minutes, and it won't surprise anybody in this room to know that I'm kind of lenient on that. As long as you don't use 4.5 of your minutes to lecture or editorialize and only live 30 seconds for an answer to a question. But we're going to be very tolerant of the people here because at the end of the day, we all share the same goal, and that is to ensure that we're doing the very best we can by the people who utilize the transportation modes in this great country. You'll be recognized in the order of seniority based on who was seated at the beginning of the hearing, as is typical, going back and forth between parties. One other note, at around 10:30, because there is another subcommittee hearing going on today, our colleague David Joyce is chairing the Financial Services and General Government Subcommittee. He will come in and I will seek a unanimous consent request to allow him to get to his 5 minutes of questions so that he can return back to his subcommittee. So at this time, I'm going to recognize myself. Secretary Duffy, one of the President's first actions was to undo burdensome regulations relating to climate and equity brought by the prior administration. You followed suit. You've discussed this in your opening statement today, revoking Biden-era policies and requirements pertaining to social and environmental justice. You also tasked the modal administrations to review grant applications and awards to ensure funds are implemented in accordance with statute and not extraneous Biden-era policies unrelated to transportation. You mentioned 3,200 grant awards. So far, according to our records, you've cleared just over 480 of those, about 15%. Can you give us a status update and help us understand the steps you're taking to review and how the grantee is notified as we move through this process?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman. We are all hands on deck right now, working through these grant agreements. And again, I think you're going to see progress ramp up. But if we look over the past 4 years, there's a few months where the last administration was able to get more grant agreements out the door than we have. But by and large, we are moving at a near record pace. And we're going to continue to move at that pace. I know how important these projects are to all of your states and your districts, and especially as we come into the spring building season, or we're in the spring building season, how important it is to get those agreements signed.
What are your limitations?
Well, it takes time, right? It takes time to go through and think through these grant agreements. I will say there's a level of bureaucracy, not just at DOT, but I think throughout government. We need to streamline that bureaucracy. Again, we have to do it right, but we're looking for efficiencies. How can we do it faster? We're looking at using AI tools as well as other technological tools that we could deploy that could help us move faster on these grant agreements. We're in that exploration phase right now.
I want to talk a bit about staffing for a moment. Long-standing language in our bill that requires notification prior to any program elimination or major reorganization. Over the past few months, we've seen a series of efforts by the administration to reduce the size of the federal workforce. And I think a lot of us up here would agree that the federal bureaucracy has become bloated, but I think we need to be a little bit more precise in downsizing a department with a mission as critical as DOT's. The dismissal of probationary employees has brought a reduction to the workforce of 3,000. When you add 2 rounds of buyouts, DOT will see a 12% reduction in staffing since January of 20. I also understand that OMB requested a reduction in force plan to be submitted by mid-March. So the question is pretty simple. How many departures can you handle without eroding the ability to carry out a safe and effective mission?
So first off, you mentioned the reprogramming, and I know there's requirements to report to Congress if there is going to be reprogramming. We are working through some ideas right now on how we can streamline the department. When we've completed those ideas, we will no doubt share them with you for your consideration. Listen, we can do more with less, Mr. Chairman. And if we do more with less, that means that we'll have additional money, I think, through this committee to put back into the infrastructure that so many of us dearly want in our communities. And so the DRP is maybe not it's not a scalpel. People are willing to take an opportunity to retire, to resign. We should take them up on that. And if we have shortfalls, I am mission driven. The president loves this department, loves the work that we do. You all care about the work that we do. If I have to hire people back in, I'll do that to make sure we can do the work. But if I have people who don't want to be there, that want to take the offer, well, let's get some people in who are hungry to do the work. That's what I'm looking for. And so we're gonna make it work. It's not a scalpel, but it's an opportunity for us to reduce the force, get the work done, and save the American people money.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Clyburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I noticed, Mr. Secretary, I made reference in my opening statement to your submitted statement where the term DEI was used. In your oral statement, you used the term social justice, which is fine with me. I would call your attention to the fact, however, that also raises an issue with me. We know what social justice has meant in this country. I'm a native of South Carolina. My parents, grandparents, all South Carolinians, where the Civil War began, where enslavement in this country really became the #1 economy that made South Carolina the biggest economy in the country, all because of enslavement. Now, we have done some things in this country to overcome all of that. And one of the things we've done is to make special investments. My late wife, to whom I was married for 58 years, had to walk 2.5 miles to school every morning, right past the white school where the white kids had buses. That was social injustice. And this country has made a big investment to get beyond that. And now, all of a sudden, we see this as wasteful government spending. I don't think so. I think this is wise investment in a country that has challenges that we need all people involved in. And in the Department of Transportation, where I spend a lot of my time here in the Congress, we've had some rules and regulations about how to build highways, where to build highways, where to put those bridges. And we have done some things to stop that injustice. That's not wasteful spending. And so I would like to know exactly when you make these decisions, what kind of decision making goes into the fact that if I raise the issue that this bridge or this highway is busting up a neighborhood, putting the children on one side of the highway and the schools on the other side of the highway, I'm not telling you what I think, I'm telling you what happened in my neighborhood. These are social injustices that I think we as a government has got a responsibility to make sure that does not happen going forward. So I love builders. I'm a bridge builder myself, not trying to get from one side of the lake to the other, the bridge builder to the future for my children and grandchildren. And I think social justice is an area that we need to pay attention to. And I would like to know, how do you make decisions about that?
So, Mr. Clyburn, Congressman, I'm well aware of your history, and I think America should be proud of your history and all that you've done. I'm talking about something very specific in regard to DOT. Okay, I'm not talking about the broader political conversation. So there are requirements in the last administration, like a racial equity impact analysis has been completed for the project, or the recipient or a project partner has adopted an equity and inclusion program plan, or has otherwise instituted equity-focused policies related to project procurement, material sourcing, construction, inspection, hiring, or other activities. And so what I see with the climate and the social justice requirements in the projects that you so dearly want built, that it's adding costs on. It's costing more money. And if we take out, 5 to 10% on climate or social justice, that's money we don't have for additional projects. And that's my concern. And then the final point is the Supreme Court in the Harvard decision said we are not going to divide people and make decisions based on race or sex. We're going to make it based on the people and in Harvard, the quality of their applications to the school. And so here, these were specific instances where the costs were going up. And I don't know that this was adding to the safety or the quality of the project.
Well, I would ask you to have your staff look at the Adirondack decision that deals with this issue. And the Adirondack decision has not been overturned by the courts. And I maintain that a lot of what we're doing at the Department of Administration today is in violation of the Adirondack decision. I'll get back.
Chair seeks unanimous consent to recognize Mr. Joyce out of order since he has some other duties he needs to fulfill. Hearing no objection, Mr. Joyce, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Secretary Duffy.
Mr. Joyce?
Mr. Secretary, in FY19, the Department of Transportation launched a port infrastructure development program to increase port capacity and resiliency while modernizing an aging port infrastructure. Since then, the department has distributed more than $2 billion to port authorities, tribal, state, and local governments, and private companies. While 70% of these funds went to the West Coast and East Coast ports last year, only 2% of these funds were awarded to the Great Lakes ports. I'm concerned that under the previous administration, these funds were not being distributed fairly across all regions. In your testimony, you mentioned your budget request provides the Maritime Administration with $596 million more than FY25 enacted less. How will your request help ensure ports in all regions of the country have access to needed funding so that they are able to operate at full capacity?
So I thought you might ask me that question. So I asked MARAD, is there a disparity in the money that goes to the Great Lakes? And they're telling me no, but I'm going to investigate that a little bit further. As you know, I'm from northern Wisconsin, and we care about Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, and equal access to resources is important. It's a driving force in the economy in our region. So I understand that. I'll continue to have this discussion with MARAD, and would look forward to getting back to you and getting you the information that I find.
Thank you. I've been open about going for all the Great Lakes. I haven't just pushed Lake Erie. But can you describe any plans your department has to ensure and improve that regional distribution of federal assistance under the Port Infrastructure Grant, or is that something that you need to?
Well, we're working through our plans right now, and would be happy to partner with you as we review that and look at it.
Many aviation stakeholders are still concerned about the challenges the FAA faces in reviewing medical certificate applications, as well as the steps it's proposing to streamline that process. According to stakeholders, two of the main issues causing delays in the FAA medical certification process are, first, the outdated paper-based system used to submit and process medical records, and second, the limited availability of specialist review panels, which only meet every couple of months and can only review a small number of cases at a time. These challenges create long wait times before a physician can even begin reviewing a case, leaving both the pilots and the aviation medical examiners stuck in a stressful and often frustrating holding pattern. Secretary, would you describe any actions your department's taken or plans to take to streamline this process, reduce costs to taxpayers, and ensure pilots can safely return to the air in a timely manner?
So this is an issue that I too have heard a lot about. A lot of pilots have reached out. It is too slow, it's too laborious, complicated. And so I've had conversations with the FAA on how we can improve this process. And I'd be happy to, again, circle back with you and talk about how we're going to navigate making this process more responsive and quicker.
And I understand and fully appreciate the fact that you've inherited a lot of problems in a small period of time. And I've seen you work, that you'll be able to work through this process. I'll throw out one last thing, is I had an opportunity under former Chairman Schuster and Secretary Chow to go to Canada to see the system that they have in place up there for the aviation control. And I know that there's some issues with it, but there's better systems that exist than what we have in place. And then been in the towers to watch the people have to transfer paper. I can't believe that in this day and age, this is the American system, but I know under your leadership, we'll get that problem fixed. Thank you, sir. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. I'm going to recognize now the full committee chairman, Mr. Cole, and Ms. Torres will be on deck. Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, to my friend from Arkansas and certainly the secretary, I had the privilege many years ago, or a number of years ago, actually chairing this subcommittee. And I had a pretty simple philosophy on anything that was safety related that an administration proposed. And it was that we would match or exceed anything that related directly to safety. I didn't want that issue to ever become a partisan, if you had funded or not funded kind of discussion. And again, we'll wait and see what we have to work with, but we certainly hope we can work with you on that. I don't think there's any partisan division about making sure the railroads are safe, the airways are safe, the roads are safe, and you're probably in a better position to tell us what you need to do that than we are to tell you what needs to happen. So we'll try and fulfill that same commitment to you. Our air traffic control system, as you know, is facing a lot of strain, particularly at our busiest towers. And I want to thank you for your visit to the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center in February and your decision to announce a hiring surge immediately afterward was a clear signal of your leadership and commitment to addressing the shortage of controllers that we've seen grow over many years. The FY26 skinny budget reflects the department's commitment to accelerate air traffic controller hiring, requesting increases in FAA operations for a hiring surge in the Air Traffic Control Academy. So we appreciate that, and we're going to try and work and meet your requests there. As you know, the FAA Academy itself is actually a world-class facility. It's trained generations of controllers to the highest standards. And in my view, the complexity and precision required for this safety-critical workforce demands a centralized, hands-on training environment and not a patchwork of remote or decentralized approaches. So, again, we appreciate your efforts. I was very pleased last week, just to update you, to have the opportunity to deal with the acting administrator, and I hope I don't butcher his name, but Richelieu, about bringing additional teaching resources to the academy. Can you update us on the progress FAA has made toward addressing the air traffic controller shortfall, and how many candidates did we actually hire last year?
I appreciate the question, and I appreciate the engagement from the Oklahoma delegation. You guys have been wonderful to work with and have given the support to the academy that's necessary. So what you think would be a very simple set of solutions to get more butts in seats at the academy is far more complicated than that, and we've been working through streamlining testing, getting the best test scores through the process and in the academy. What we've done is we have air traffic controllers who are teaching the classes in the academy, but not all of the classes are specifically air traffic control specific. So we're going to bring in professors to teach the non-specific air traffic control classes. That'll free up air traffic controllers to teach additional classes, which means we get more instructors in the academy, which means we can get more kids, young people, through the academy. So there was a target of 2,000 for this fiscal year of controllers to get out of the academy or to get into the academy. That was not going to be met, but after this supercharge announcement that we made, I think we're going to hit the 2,000. One of the problems that we have, as you know, Congressman, is there's a 35% washout rate at the academy. When I was there, some of the young people said, if you could just give us some help, if there's some tutors that could assist us with just a little extra help we may need. A lot of these washout students in the academy are actually going to make it. They're going to be good controllers, but just give us some extra support. So we've now stood that up as well. If we could get the washout rate from 35% to 25%, we're starting to talk, real numbers, another couple hundred a year. So my hope is we're gonna get above 1,200 this year, with next year hopefully getting 2,200, 2,300 into the academy. And then we've offered a bonus to controllers who are actually experienced. They can retire after 25 years. And so to get them to stay on with that experience, we've offered to pay them a 20% upfront bonus to their salaries if they'll stay. And for every year they'll stay, we're going to give them 20% of their bonus up front. Again, you got to pay people to stick around, and we're in an emergency situation, and I think we're going to see a lot of controllers take us up on that. I would say I know a lot of them are looking at their retirements that the Congress is talking about right now that could force some of them out rather than stay because they're looking at long-term funding. I know that that's come up with the controllers, but that's the work of the Congress, but just full transparency on what they're considering, Congressman.
Well, we're going to have time for a second round. There's some other issues, but I want to commend you on the efforts you've already taken. I think it's exactly the right approach. We've done this in the military before to make sure we didn't lose recruits. We helped them get to where they wanted to go. I think you're absolutely on the right track on that, and I appreciate you raising the retirement issue. Some of us are having very direct talks with our own leadership about that, and we could lose some very valuable people. You're talking about the ones here. I can give you a whole list of valuable technicians at Tinker Air Force Base and places like that you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. You've made some commitments. You need to follow through on those commitments, and we'll see where we end up at the end of this process. But again, thank you for your service. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I wouldn't object if there's not a second round. I'll be okay with that if you guys don't.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Chairman and Secretary Duffy. Welcome to the committee, and I look forward to welcoming you in the Inland Empire sometime in the fall. I want to give you a little background on the district that I represent, California's 35th Congressional District. We refer to it as the Inland Empire. Infrastructure is our lifeline. Our region is a logistics hub where trucks, trains, and airplanes deliver goods to massive warehouses. The bipartisan infrastructure law and this committee's appropriations gave my constituents hope, investing in public transit, safety, and more reliable transportation network. But I'm very concerned that the ability of my cities to build these projects is being undermined by the layoffs, the workforce layoffs. The cuts have made it almost impossible to get funds out the door, and only 12% of federal grants are just being distributed. Delays combined with lumber and steel tariffs have threatened vital programs, and it's resulted in one major rail public transportation program to be completely canceled, no longer affordable. I also represent the Ontario Airport, and I'm concerned about the recent actions taken that undermine our air travel safety. Bipartisan efforts in Congress, as you have recognized, increased funding for air traffic controllers. But the administration undermined that by offering deferred resignations to controllers. And at least 400 of them responsible for maintaining air traffic control systems were fired, resulting in delays to much needed upgrades. I agree, and I'm so happy to hear what you just told the chairman of the full committee, and I want to make sure that you are successful in hiring those 2,000 people, in addressing the attrition rates, and addressing the training needs of this workforce. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record an email that I received from United Airlines this week about air traffic safety. This is an email that was sent to me as a passenger on a future flight that will be flying through Newark Airport.
Without objection, so ordered.
Secretary Duffy, planes are falling from the sky, some crashing into each other, air traffic controller systems are unexpectedly shutting down and resetting themselves. Traffic controllers are too nervous to continue in many cases. Praying for a safe landing isn't enough. I'm glad that you recognize that. The flying public, though, needs to hear more reassurances that you and the department and all of us working together are doing everything in our power to ensure that no more lives will be put at risk and that we can continue to fly safely and be delivered to our destination in a safe manner. I also want to address the planned closure of the pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration regional office in Ontario. It's a big mouth name for an office that does such critical work. This office plays a critical role in overseeing the safe movement of hazardous materials, like dangerous gases and corrosive materials, directly impacting the safety of my constituents and the entire region. The Alameda Corridor splits my district in two. Hazardous materials travel through the heart of my cities every single day, and this office is supposed to stop problems before they happen. I sent a letter to raise concerns about this closure, and frankly, the May 8th response I received reads like it was written by someone who doesn't give a shit about the consequences of closing this office. It provided zero assurance that this office would be restored and blamed the lease termination on another agency within this administration. We can't be blaming each other. We have to take accountability for what has happened, and we have to reverse course. It is clear that the safety of my constituents and the region at large is being completely ignored by bureaucrats looking to justify savings on a website. Just last year, inspectors from our region identified 15 probable violations, and it only takes one safety violation to result in a catastrophic incident like the one in East Palestine, Ohio. Secretary Duffy, how can DOT justify this closure? And I know that my time is almost running out, but how can we justify this closure, and can I count on you to review the process of this other agency of closing this office?
I'll give him a few seconds to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of falsehoods that were just lodged. If you'd give me a moment to respond to the 5 minutes of misinformation, I would be happy to do that. So we have not fired, haven't let any one air traffic
I didn't say
controller
they
go. You
fired
said that we let
anyone.
400 go. No one in air traffic control has been allowed to take a deferred resignation offer. We have preserved all of our safety critical mission positions, including air traffic controllers. Not one has been allowed to retire by any of the programs that we've offered. Not one, not 400, zero. We're in this situation because the last administration didn't see to take initiative on the 3,000 controllers short that we were. Under COVID, they didn't stand up the school fast enough to get more kids through Oklahoma so we would have more controllers in the airspace today. The infrastructure didn't rot in the last 100 days. We didn't have 3,000 controller shortages in the last 100 days. There was 4 years that came before where nothing was done. And watchdog groups have warned the DOT that the infrastructure was failing, and nothing was done. So we're going to do something about it. We're going to try to fix it. By the way, if I could just talk about grants, Mr. Chairman, can I say one grace moment to be 30 seconds? So between Obama and
2,000 positions were
Right.
funded in the
gentleman-
last
let the gentleman
administration.
respond.
So don't say nothing was done.
between Obama and Trump, Election Day and Inauguration Day, in that time frame, Obama announced 50 grants in that time frame. Between Trump and Biden, the Trump administration announced between Election Day and Inauguration Day 100 grants. This time, between Biden and Trump, Pete Buttigieg announced 1,000 grants, a massive increase. And you all say, where are my grant agreements? So they announce all these grants, and I have to do the work, and I'm going to do the work, but offer some grace to the DOT. There's 3,200 backlogs here. We're going to work through it. I want to get you your money, but to blame it on us, I think is rich.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And once again to my colleagues, as I said in announcing the Q&A, if you're going to spend most of your time editorializing, giving your opinion, that's okay. It's your time. But don't ask the committee to be terribly lenient if you're going to do that, and then expect a response from the Secretary. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome home. You've
Thank
had
you.
a distinguished record of service in this body, and so one of us has done good, and it's you. Thank you for serving in this capacity. We predict that your record will be enhanced even more in this job than in your previous one. Let me ask you about rural highways, roadways.
Yeah.
20% of Americans live in rural areas, but they account for 43% of all deaths from 2017 to 21. Over 83,000 fatalities. Investments in rural highways are critical to improve safety, accessibility, and economic growth. What are your plans for, especially for the rural road system in the country?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the question. We have 40+ thousand deaths a year on our roads. It's way too many. And I think in rural America, where I'm from, sometimes those roads get really long and people cannot pay attention. That could be a problem. There's some who may become tired on those trips. But I do think some of the technology that comes on board right now that can warn people when they're tired, I do think autonomous technology is going to enhance the safety of everyone on our roads. And we haven't really seen substantial movements in the numbers of death over the course of the last decade. And I think this technology truly will save lives and prohibit families from going through the pain of losing a loved one. But again, this is a problem that the department has grappled with, and I do think the answer is going to come through technology.
And the same language applies to airports, rural airports. What do you see for their future, given the fact that the proposal is to zero out the EAS system for rural America?
So first off, I had ES airports in my district. Understand the importance of essential air service for rural America. I don't know how many on the committee have a EAS airport, but I know a lot of people in this body and in the body across the Capitol do as well. So we're gonna work through a plan to try to make this efficient and provide the service to communities that depend on it. And I'll partner with this committee, bipartisan, as we work through that and navigate service, but doing it more cost effectively. And I hope I'm able to make that happen, and I'll partner with you in that process.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yield back.
Mr. Quigley.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, I appreciate what the chairman is saying, and I think he'll tell you that he and I have a very solid history of bipartisan, pragmatic ways of trying to get things done. So I want you to know this is pragmatic. If it rolls, floats, or flies, it comes through Chicago. This is too important. O'Hare, Lake Michigan, 1 in 4 freight trains goes through Chicago. So the criteria we talk about with these grants, population, existing infrastructure, age and quality, economic activity, traffic volume, that's all I want to talk about.
Great.
So we can appreciate a little concern I'd had just from a pragmatic point of view. Putting aside personal feelings, quote, give preference to communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average. I'm just not sure what the heck that has to do with the pragmatic issues we're trying to solve very quickly. numerous studies, Urban Institute analysis, census tracts with higher marriage and birth rates have more households with access to a car. They also feature a much higher share of residents who commute to Kurt while driving alone, who also a lower share of people who walk, bike, or take transit. We're actually, if you follow that, going to add to congestion issues and traffic volume and therefore pollution. It's sort of contra to the pragmatic aspects that we're trying to get done here.
So a lot of transportation activity in Chicago. I think you now have a pope from Chicago too, that you guys don't stop.
But he's a Sox fan, so I digress.
I hope he's not a Bears fan. That's all I can say. So, I mean, but I do think this is one factor to look at. And the reason I'm looking at,
I mean, Mr. Scalise's 50th Louisiana, I suspect he might be concerned about this too. So it's bipartisan.
so I listen, by the way, I think infrastructure is bipartisan. This is probably one of the most bipartisan jobs you could get in the government because.
Tell me why
we all-
marriage matters.
Because I think if you look at marriage and birth rates, that's going to lead to future needs. Where you have families developing and where you have kids being born is where you're going to have population. And then when you have population, that's going to mean you're going to need infrastructure needs. But it's not the end all be all. I'm not making decisions at the DOT based only on marriage and birth rates. I said that's a factor that we should consider for future growth.
Back to the studies that show it does just the opposite, that those census tracts tend to be wealthier, frankly, more white, and less need of public transportation. So you're actually working against the need. They're more likely to drive in a car by themselves.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, can I re-explain that to me?
I'll give you the studies and the footnotes, but we'll start with the Urban Institute analysis.
But so the more kids you have in an area, the less transportation needs you'll have? Is that the study?
No, the census tracts that have the numbers that you're talking about are wealthier. They're more likely to drive where they're going with a single person in the car. A whole bunch of factors that add to greater congestion. They are wealthier, so there are communities that need public transportation less. These are all statistical. I'm just saying. I'm putting aside the personalities.
No, that's
it's a
fine.
factor that moves us in the opposite direction.
I'd love to. I'll look at the study, and I'd love to talk to you about it. But from just what I've seen with the data, it's not white families that are having more kids. It's other families that look like mine that are having a lot of kids.
Population and population trends is a criteria that makes sense. It's what we're already used. But you're talking about something that works in the opposite direction, and it doesn't help the situation.
Well, again, where we have children, we have families, we have population growth, and we'll need infrastructure. I think that's pretty simple.
The notion is that you want to help families with kids. Generally, you want to help families. You want to help families with kids.
Well, I think families are great, and I think kids are
Yeah.
great. But I also think that
You want to support families with children.
well, no, I want to support infrastructure needs of the future, and where we have families and kids is where we're going to need infrastructure. Where I think we're going to see growth. I think that's fair to say.
But what you're going to have with more kids, and you're going to have poorer census tracts, they're going to need more public transportation. This is going to skew us toward highway projects, road projects, and fewer projects for mass transit. That's just statistically true.
If we need more freight to bring in more goods, more diapers into these communities, we can talk about that. If we need to, if we
the
need,
second
if we need,
round,
if we
I'm
need
sure we
public,
will.
transportation in these areas where we're having more kids, we should talk about that as well. This was not one-off highways. We'll look at the whole department and all the modes and how we can serve the future of
I just
population
want you to
growth.
appreciate this is the pragmatic, personal feelings aside. We'll do that in the second round.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take up the diaper dandies in round two, okay? Mr. Quigley? Ms. Bice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us. And I want to take a moment to reiterate Chairman Womack and Chairman Cole's condolences to the Lilly family. Thank you for being here and working with us to ensure that we continue to have the safest skies in the world. I, as Chairman Cole, also represent portions of the Oklahoma City area, and I'm proud to represent thousands of FAA employees in my district who work at the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. I want to thank you for your recent visit in February, and I'm glad you're able to see the critical facility and the great work that's being done there. I want to share with you a quick story because I think it is an example of how broken things have been. After I was elected, I tried to get into CFA, Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, for quite some time, and the former Secretary of Transportation made it very difficult for the staff to allow me in. I finally got in October of 22. And keep in mind, the White House was open in August of 22 for visits again. But it was when I arrived to the facility, I was required to answer COVID protocol questions. Secretary Buttigieg still had these protocols for certain facilities in place, and it was pretty shocking to have to answer those questions. So it's refreshing to have someone come in and focus on the mission and actually what needs to be done to improve the safety of our skies. The FAA workforce in Oklahoma is crucial, and the Academy is a national asset that prepares our air traffic controllers for the rigors of a very difficult job. Mr. Secretary, as you know, the Academy relies on timely medical and security screenings as well as capacity in field training facilities to move candidates through that pipeline in a timely fashion. I have a particular concern with the lengthy delays of the medical screening process and the field training, but I was excited on your recent actions to address the factors as part of the Supercharge initiative, and I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that and how we can move these folks through the pipeline faster.
I appreciate the question. Yeah. So, by the way, if you all haven't been to the Academy, it is amazing. You should all go. It's really remarkable how we train up air traffic controllers. But yeah, we were having this issue where it was taking up to a year and a half once you apply to become a controller to actually get a spot in the Academy. And the issue with that is if you're 25 years old and you're waiting a year and a half, you're going to go find a different job. You can't wait for a potential seat at the Academy. And so one of the holdups was the medical exams. And so we've worked with our doctors, which by the way, it seems like it would be easier than it actually was. We've incentivized them with additional pay to take our applicants earlier, so we get our appointments scheduled faster. And then it was taking, months to get the reports back. And so we're going to give them a bonus to get those reports back to us in 2 weeks. And sometimes this comes down to money. By the way, we have that in the current, we're moving dollars around at the FAA that you've given us the grace to do, but we're moving dollars around to pay for it with the existing money that the FAA has. But again, that is allowing us to get these students who take the test, get the medical, do the background check, and we're taking those top scores and putting them into the Academy first. So it's moving faster, which is
Merit-based, which is incredibly important because that hasn't been the case in the past, correct?
yes, right. So if you get a 98 on your test, we're going to put you in before someone who got an 82. Like I just think that makes sense, and the opportunity to not have that student wash out is way better. So I think because the washout rate becomes a real issue, and the best qualified students will give us a lower washout rate. But so thank you for recognizing the hard work it took to try to figure this out.
Well, I appreciate the focus on that. And I do want to touch on technology, but I also want to make one quick note. You mentioned in your testimony grants and the number of grant programs that and processes that you're having to deal with. And that's a focus for me because it's obvious to me if it's happening at your agency, it's happening across government. And so many grants are being duplicated in many ways to the same entities. So I want to work with you to streamline that in any way that we can. Last, I just want to quickly ask you to touch on the technology upgrades. You had a great visual when you did your press conference showing floppy disks. I'm of the age that I know what a floppy disk is, but my 24-year-old does not. What are we going to do to invest in technology to get our air traffic infrastructure up to really snuff up to the 21st century quickly?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. We have a whole problem, and if you look at the infrastructure around air traffic control, I don't think there's anything there to save. If there's some scraps you could offer a junkyard, that's possible. But really, this is 80s. Our radar is from the 70s. We have a couple new ones from early 80s. I mean, that's how old the stuff is. But if I'm really honest with you, I don't think it's been done because it is really hard. We're going to update the telecom, moving from copper to fiber. By the way, that's really fast. We actually have to slow down the fast speed of fiber to then make the equipment that we use in the facilities make it think it's as slow as copper. Otherwise, because they can't take the high speed, it's so old. And so as we think about how we're going to do that with fiber, slowing it down, and then at the same time building the infrastructure inside the TRACONs or the towers or the centers, and also keep planes in the air and doing it safely. It's not going to be an easy task. Newark has to be addressed and has to be addressed first. My preference would be that we start at lower volume airports and we go through that process and learn as we go how we choreograph the build. But again, if we can put a man on the moon, we can actually build this and build it well and truly have the state-of-the-art, best in the world system.
My airport manager back home may not like this, but I'm happy to let you experiment on the Oklahoma City Will Rogers International Airport on that project because I think it's crucial to ensuring safety across the nation moving forward. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Nice attempt to get to the front of the line. Anyway, we hear you. Ms. Watson-Coleman, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I was at the other hearing. Mr. Duffy, good morning to you. I come from New Jersey, so you know I'm going to ask you about the Newark Airport.
Yeah.
Because it's very frightening what we've been experiencing. And I even know that you diverted your wife from Newark Airport to LaGuardia out of a sense of security. So in general and in specific, that's not true?
No.
Maybe we're so used to false information coming out and about this administration.
It's partially true, but I'll explain that.
Okey-dokey. I want to know specifically, what are you proposing to do to eliminate those problems that have impacted safety, security, and landing in Newark?
Yeah.
What are you proposing as it relates to ensuring that the appropriate staffing exists in addition to the issues with infrastructure? And how do you see the time frame taking place?
Thank you for the question. So I did, with all the delays at Newark, my wife had to do an event, and she was in the city of New York, and so I moved her from Newark to LaGuardia, not for safety, but because I needed her flight to fly. She had to get there. Now, someone had clipped some audio of that and made it seem like I was talking about safety. I fly out of Newark all the time. My family does.
Yeah,
So
I accept that.
thank you. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
It was breaking the rounds, and it was not I know where that came from. But so here's what I'm doing. So first, the Newark, Teterboro, and Morristown used to be controlled by N90, which was in New York, right? That had LaGuardia and JFK controlling all that airspace. It was the N90 TRACON. Last summer, the last administration moved the Newark airspace from N90 down to the Philadelphia TRACON. And I think two issues happened. They didn't test and make sure the lines were hardened, the communication was hardened when they did that. And the second is they didn't move the STARS system, which helps interpret the radar from N90 down to Philadelphia as well. So those are the two problems. There were outages in October and November as well in Newark. So here's what we've done. We had fiber laid at the airports. You can't just deploy it. We want to test it right now. So at the airports, that's being tested today. We're working with Verizon, who have been great partners with us, to get us all fiber going from the airports down to the Philly TRACON, from Newark to Philly. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver for you. That was going to be done actually next year, I believe. Then it was going to be done in the fall. Then the summer. I hope to have even better news for you. But we're working at lightning speed and pace to get this resolved in Newark. Again, today the FAA is having a conversation about how all the airlines can come together to reduce the flights at Newark. So if you book your flight, you know it's going to fly. And I do think it's important that we slow the flights, because we don't want to have more flights than can be controlled in the airspace and then make this less safe. So I want this to be safe and do it at a speed that we can
So
control.
that speaks to infrastructure issues.
Yes.
Technology issues. What about staffing issues? What about tower control staffers and the people that need to have eyes and ears and, responsibility for the
Yes.
safety and security at the airport.
So I think the last administration moved it because they were having staffing issues at N90 and they thought they could better staff it at Philadelphia. That was one of the rationales. Just to be clear, so if you have a 20-year controller, well-experienced, working the Denver airspace or the Chicago airspace, and I go, hey, let's move them over to the Philly TRACON and let them control Newark.
So
You can't do
I'm
that.
asking you, what are you going to do about it?
Well, so I'm trying to, so just, let me make this point. You can't, it takes a year, even for an experienced controller, to get trained up in the Newark airspace. You just can't move them around because they have experience as controllers. So what I've done is I mentioned this earlier, but I've offered to pay a bonus to air traffic controllers to not retire after 25 years, but to stay on the job. We're going to pay them 20% upfront cash, and every year they stay, we're going to pay them. And we're supercharging, young people coming into the academy. But you can't fix this overnight. I can't fix this in a couple months. This is going to take us, a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Thank you. So on one hand, I see that there are cuts that are proposed to the FAA budget. On the other hand, I see the IIJA budget is being cut, or the access to that money is being cut. Is one trying to offset the other? When we look at what seems to be a need for an increase, something that Secretary Buttigieg responded to, we're now trying to figure out are we robbing Peter to pay Paul, or are we going to add to Peter and Paul?
Oh, I think the budget is we're adding to Peter and Paul. The only IIJA money that was reduced was the NEVI money. That was the $7 billion for chargers. Then you didn't get charges for the money that was spent. So that was in the budget to be taken away. But no, we're adding to the IIJA by $1.5 billion. And I forgot your question was something specific. But we've added money to it. And yes, and again, we haven't let any controllers go. We've protected safety critical missions in the department, which are air traffic controllers. So we're trying to hire more air traffic. We actually have hired more air traffic controllers. We're not letting them go. We're trying to bring more
Thank
online.
you. That's such an important airport for us, for our economy, for our traveling public. Safety and security is first and foremost. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the additional time and for acknowledging me when I came in.
It's even more important because I fly out of there too all the time. So I want to make sure it works.
Sheriff, Mr. Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chairman Cole and Ranking Member. Thank you all. Mr. Secretary, it's great to see you here this morning, or this afternoon, I guess. But I want to talk a little bit about, I saw where you had a trip to the United States Maritime Academy.
Yeah.
And that's a particular interest to me. And so I believe we share that interest with President Trump, actually, in revitalizing the U.S. maritime situation. Because it's not only critical to our economy, it's also critical to our national defense. And so I want to talk about the Merchant Marine Academy and how it contributes to both of those missions. And with your recent trip, I saw some comments, I think, that you had about that. I'd love to hear your take on that. And also, I see a real commitment here to MARAD through the 596 plus up billion. So could you talk to us a little bit about your vision and your visit to the Merchant Marine Academy and where you think we ought to be going with that?
So if you guys all go to Oklahoma City to tour the academy, but also if you all went to Kings Point, these kids here are some of the most amazing young men and women that I have a lot of kids and met a lot of kids. These are some of the most amazing kids I've met. And this academy is unworthy to have the name America associated with it. It is dilapidated. The kids went 4 months without hot water. They had cold showers for 4 months at an American Maritime Academy. They're eating off of paper plates, if they even get a plate, because the dishwasher's broken. I mean, that we would allow that to happen for young people in this country who want to serve their country, and they're smart and they're strong and they're dedicated. And so I've committed to them. I want to fight for them, and I think all of you, if you saw the kind of young people that are there, and the kind of heart that they have, you too would want to fight for them. And it's important because one, if we're going to build ships in America, which I hope we do, we need young mariners to sail those ships. And these kids are amazing that come out. But also, if we have time of conflict, they're the mariners that support the military, moving goods and actually people as well to support the military. So we need them. And by the way, a lot of them also will then finish the academy and enlist in the armed services too. So if you go, there's mold. There's just it's been forgotten. And my commitment is, and maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but I will. I want to keep the Merchant Marine Academy at DOT. I think we can serve them very well. I think this committee can serve them well. If we can't serve them, I think we should give them up. We should give them to the Marines. I don't want to do that, but they deserve better than what they're getting. And it's an American priority.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. And I also want to acknowledge the $105 million additional for upgrading some of our shipyards, because we absolutely have to improve on that. I'd like to switch gears here and ask you about another issue. In Jacksonville, Florida, which I represent, the Transportation Authority there has become a leader in autonomous vehicle circulators. The U2C program there, the ultimate, it's called the Ultimate Urban Circulator, and autonomous vehicles play a big role in that. And I know as we look to our highway systems even, autonomous vehicles are going to start to play a part, I think even in our dray situations. So can you talk just a little bit about DOTs? How do you see DOT playing into the nationwide plan for autonomous vehicles?
So some people think of us at DOT as hard hats and the orange vests. I think we are one of the most innovative places in all of government right now with autonomous vehicles, eVTOLs or the Ubers in the air, and drone technology. So if we don't have the right rules in place, allowing this technology to advance at the right speed, you can't let them go too fast. You can't have them go too slow. But if we don't do it here, China's going to do it. And as this technology develops, we're going to use Chinese products in the U.S. for autonomous vehicles, which, by the way, I think poses a grave national security risk to the country. And so we are working to get the right information with those who are making autonomous vehicles and want to allow them to deploy those vehicles and test those vehicles as the technology advances. And I do think we need one national standard. You can't have 50 states with 50 different standards. We need to let them develop to one standard, and that's what we're doing at DOT. And by the way, the innovators have been very cooperative with us, giving us the information that we asked for, so we can make the right rules around the vehicles.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And my time is up. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for being here, Mr. and Mrs. Lilly as well. Mr. Secretary, as the chairman mentioned, chairman of the full committee and chairman of the subcommittee, safety is of primary concern to all of us. You see that in the questions that are being asked by both sides. I can't help but ask you to reflect. It's been reported that you've pushed back against some DOJ efforts, with respect to staffing. I want to ensure you've said that safety is first. As the chairman mentioned, notification of Congress is also an important authority and a responsibility that you have. Implementing these grants, I agree it is a time-honored tradition to point the fingers at your predecessor. It's something we do quite often, here up on this dais and in this dome. But the importance of doing all of those jobs, safety, notification, grant awards, is the responsibility of your department. And with fewer people, I hope you can continue to execute those important missions. In January, California experienced horrific wildfires, and the devastation was so huge. It's tough to comprehend. Pictures don't do it justice. In February, the governor of California requested $101 million under the Department of Transportation's Emergency Relief Program to help rebuild federal highways, bridges, and roads. Congress is waiting for the president to request of Congress to pass a disaster supplemental that includes funding for Southern California. It's been months since the wildfires occurred. We haven't seen anything from a formal request of Congress. Do you have any updates on the status of a request, Mr. Secretary? And have you seen some of the damage? Is it a tour that you are open to seeing with your own eyes in Southern California?
Yeah, I'm absolutely open to a tour. My son lives in the area and actually had to evacuate with a new baby. I was well aware of it on a personal level, how devastating the fires were. I could get some additional information and circle back with you. I don't have it for you right now, though.
Specific to that line item, though, you're confident in the DOT's ability to implement that funding if Congress adds the additional dollars for the emergency relief program?
So I'm confident that I'm going to have the staffing levels to accomplish the mission of the department. And again, that's responsive to all of you. That's responsive to a president who wants me to be able to support the builds in America. So yes.
Do you know how committed the administration is to executing disaster assistance without preconditions? We wouldn't put preconditions on tornadoes and floods, hurricanes. Why would we do it in this case?
I haven't had that conversation with the administration.
Okay, thank you. Over the next couple of years, Southern California will also be host to the World Cup in 2026, Super Bowl in 2027, and the Olympics and Paralympic Games in 2028. You yourself have called these America's Games. LA Metro estimates that the region will need over $3 billion in federal funding over the next 3 years to ensure public transportation network can support the athletes, the staff, the ticket holders, and residents just for the Olympics alone. Last year, the Senate included $200 million in transportation funding for the Olympics. President Trump signed a CR. That funding was not included in the final funding package. Earlier this month, the California delegation and a couple of us here in the dais joined in sending a letter to the president asking for a budget request that included $500 million in dedicated infrastructure funding for the Olympics. Can you comment on the status of how you view the Olympics from a dollars and cents perspective? And will you commit to work with the California delegation as we work through FY26 and prepare for the 28 Olympics and these other events?
They're going to be great. And so our department is working with the White House. They have a task force for the World Cup as well as for the Olympics. And transportation is a key part of moving people where we have these massive events. And so we are no doubt going to partner with California in your needs and with the administration. And again, you guys have the power of the purse. I would look forward to all of us thinking through what those needs are, because again, this is our presentation to the world. The world's going to come for both the World Cup and the Olympics. And I know the president wants to have a great showing, a seamless showing. And I think we want to invite the world for even for this summer. For the club games and to have them come in and, by the way, spend a lot of their money would be wonderful, but they have to have a wonderful experience with it. So we're going to support the communities across the country with their transportation
And
needs.
you would support a funding level of around that $500
Oh, I don't know.
million
I
for
don't know.
FY26?
I haven't looked at the funding levels and what's appropriate from the department's perspective, but I want to make sure we have enough resources to make sure it's seamless. And I'd love to work with you if you have some ideas.
I appreciate the comment that it's going to be great, but this body works with funding formulas and tables and real dollars out on the street to implement all the happy talk. So I just
Of course,
want to make sure
we have a skinny budget we were talking about today. So I'm happy to talk to you about it, but that was not on the calendar for today. And so if you want me to look at the numbers, I'll look at them and we can partner up together.
Yeah, happy to work with you. Thank you,
well.
Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet, Pete. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Welcome back to the House. Your testimony has been a breath of fresh air. I think one of the things that the last administration failed to do, the secret sauce, was transparency. That's all the American people want. Good, bad, ugly, just give us the truth. I want to start, I'm an optimistic person. I want to start with the future. And in my eyes, the future is commercial space travel. And I view the world, sometimes the answer is not more money. Sometimes the answer is the government getting out of the way and allowing industries to just take hold. And so in particular, SpaceX has launched successfully nearly 500 rockets. This isn't a what if, we're already there. And so my question is, what can DOT do in particular to ensure that the United States of America is the leader and the winner in this commercial space battle, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know the FAA had thought through, this was in the last administration, but to think through how they could streamline the process for permits with space travel. And I've just met with a very prominent company, not SpaceX, but a different one. And they're like, it got worse. It didn't get better. And so we have to make sure we need to have a permitting process. We need to have rules and regulations in place. But it has become so complicated and so redundant, and different agencies making these companies do the same thing over again, taking years as opposed to a couple months, is a huge problem. So this meeting that took place yesterday, I've tasked the FAA to go back and look at how we're going through the permitting process and the approval process. Because again, this is, we are leading right now. You look at SpaceX and Blue Origin and others. We're leading, but we want to make sure we stay in the lead. And you can't have government getting in the way and needlessly in the way of this advancement.
I'd welcome hosting you in Texas. Blue Origin is in my district. We're literally launching rockets from West Texas and South Texas as well. Once again, I think this is an area that's worth talking about. I'm a retired, professional cryptologist. When you have big problems, oftentimes the answer is look towards technology. It's an equalizer. I want to bring it back to kind of home base a little bit, and I want to piggyback off of what Chairman Rogers said earlier about rural infrastructure. One of my counties, Reeves County, produces more natural gas than anywhere else in the country. Okay. And in that area, the infrastructure is just completely worn down. There's a highway from Reeves to Loving County that we call Death Highway. And if you've ever been on that highway, you know why it's Death Highway. I mean, when I'm on there, I'm telling my team, put your phones down, 10 and 2, it's a very scary situation. My question is, what does infrastructure near critical resources like oil and gas industries, we've talked about, energy independence, where does that fall in your priority list?
So, well, first of all, for the president as well, he cares about oil and gas and making sure we're leading the world. And if we have extra, to be able to export, especially LNG. But one of the problems I think we have is up to 40% of the money that's spent from all of you on these projects goes to consultants and permitting. 40%. I mean, if we could get that to 15%, that means you guys all get to build more projects. We get more grant money out the door. And I think we do have to spend smarter and spend better. And again, that doesn't mean we don't do things right. You say, hey, should we look out for the environment? Should we look out for the right permits? Of course, but we can do that with less money. And the consultant class that is built up almost seems to be bigger than the construction class around these projects. So we're looking at permitting reform right now. How can we delegate more authority to states to do some of the work? Because we think they can move faster and more efficiently than the federal government.
Excellent. I mean, I look forward to working together. I bring that up because oftentimes rural America gets forgotten in this equation. One, when they produce a lot of these very critical resources. I met with a woman there in Pecos County who her number one ask was, she said, Tony, my son is terrified to start driving. He's 15 years old. It's a reasonable ask to have, our children not be terrified to drive on our highways. So the last thing, and we could take this back, once again, I like to build upon this. I'm almost out of time, but the Del Rio Airport is very important to me. We have not had an airlines in there since 2022. The reason why I mentioned Del Rio, Texas, it's along the border. It's critical infrastructure when you talk about border security, Laughlin Air Force Base. It has a lot of nodes in there. As we look towards that, I look forward to working together on how we can restart this rural kind of airlines in there.
I appreciate that. Look forward to the
Thank you,
work.
Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Espaillat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Duffy, for being here. I also want to thank the family, the Lilly family, for being here. Our prayers and our hearts go out to you and the memory of your son. That tragic accident in Reagan Airport. I myself was on a plane with four of my other colleagues that witnessed the wing being clipped by another flight as we stood in the runway at the airport. So air traffic safety is critical. My district, which has Harlem, East Harlem, Washington Heights in the Northwest Bronx, stands sort of like in the center of LaGuardia, Newark, Teterboro, Westchester, and even JFK. So all of that air traffic flies right above my district. And Secretary, recently, staffing delays and system malfunctions at New York Airport have caused, obviously, significant delays and safety concerns. To adequately address this issue and general air traffic control modernization initiatives, industry experts believe that at minimum, we need to invest $30 billion. Now, we've seen the president's discretionary skinny budget call for $18 billion. Now, you yourself had explained the archaic condition of equipment. Newark is going through a runway reconstruction. The system, the operation was moved to Philadelphia. That's going to require additional dollars. And of course, we need to train air traffic controllers, and that's not going to be able to be done in it overnight. So if the experts are saying that we need $30 billion, how do you expect to do all of this with the proposed skinny budget, $18 billion?
Thank you for that question. So as we go through the budget process, we're going to have a conversation because I think this is very special, what we need to do here. And I would hope that we could have that conversation before October 1st.
So you recognize that the skinny budget falls short of what we need to be to.
Well, so the skinny budget isn't the ask that I'm going to have of all of you to rebuild this whole system. By the way, we had 55 different groups, unions, industry, airlines. They don't sit on the same side of the table. They all came together and said, "This is an American moment." And so, yeah, it's not in the skinny budget. I'm going to need you all to take this up as a special priority.
This is not a cheap endeavor. If you're saying that there's radars that are from the 70s and 80s, that you have copper lines, and that you have, of course, the major task of training air traffic controllers at the level that we need to ensure that there's safety. We're going to have deep pockets for this, but we're not hearing that from the White House. Their fiscal commitment has not been shown to be there. Their skinny budget is at $18 billion, and that compromises, if we were to stay at that level, it would compromise the safety of Americans. And so I would hope and look forward to working with you in making sure that we come up with a real ask that will lead to that kind of improvement. Now, on another end,
Congressman, like I say, you guys all spent $1.2 trillion, and this was known problem, and virtually none of it went to go towards this infrastructure. And so the president has talked about this. I talked to him this morning he called me from Saudi Arabia. He cares about this, but yeah, you're right, it's not here. We're gonna have to have another conversation about how we do it.
I'm glad you acknowledged that the skinny budget falls short, and I'm glad you brought up
it just doesn't
the
include it.
infrastructure bill, because my next question is, localities across the nation are expecting federal transit grants to complete capital projects. Can you confirm for the record that you will honor the department's existing full funding grant agreements? I mean, people across the country are waiting for these agreements to be honored.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of grant agreements that I'm not going to honor, right? There's some with some studies that we're going to do in certain universities that I don't think that they provide good use of the federal taxpayer. But I haven't come across a slew of of issues that I wouldn't fund. Again, I might not fully agree with them, but the last administration announced them, and you expect them, and by and large, these are all going to get grant agreements. But just so you know, there is this massive backlog. I wish it would have been done before I got there, but I'm going to work with the whole Congress.
I mean, in many ways, this is like, you know, I'm a baseball fan, so you can sit on the stands in the legend seats and say that batter should have hit the ball to left field and moved the runner to second base. But when you stand there at the plate, Secretary, you see that the ball is coming at you 100 miles an hour, and it turns the size of an aspirin. You got to hit it. You're at the plate.
Oh, I know I'm at the plate.
Okay, well,
But I
thank
just, what I just don't want to see is you try to say that in 100 days these issues came my way. Let's not say that. We're getting through them. I was left 3,200, so recognize that, and then go. Good for you. You already got almost $10 billion out the door, and you've done almost over 400 of them. Good speed. Go faster. But try to blame it like I'm trying to hold things up or freeze things is not. It's not accurate. So let's not do that.
I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
You too.
Now batting, Ryan Zinke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary Duffy. It's a pleasure to see you again.
You as
and
well.
I want to thank you for stepping up to service once again. We served together in the House. I look forward to serving together here. I guess, you know, you're from Wisconsin, you're from northern Wisconsin, and I'm sure you're attuned to the problems of rural America.
Yes.
And in the news, we see that, you know, a lot of times urban America gets all the news because we're close to Washington, D.C. But in rural America, I can tell you our bridges and roads are falling apart. In Montana, for instance, we have a little bridge called Knoxon Bridge, the only bridge to a wonderful little city that was built in 1922 over the Clark Fork River. And over about 100 years, that bridge is going to fall in. The bridge itself it can't sustain a full load of kids in a bus. And then, of course, in Montana, we have the saying that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And a lot of our infrastructure on water, which is the headwaters of the Missouri River, which feeds in the Mississippi, it's a nice thing to have a lot of water flowing. So I would just offer your commitment. I am all about slashing bureaucracy, but I want your commitment that we're going to slash bureaucracy and not urban projects that are important.
So I am not about slashing projects. I'm about, we want to build. So, and I do care, like you, about rural America, 100%. But I mean, I do think at some point we have to ask the question, remember, I don't know when you ran for, in 2009, so 2010, they passed the stimulus bill under the Obama era. And then you had 1.2 trillion in the last Congress. And so that's $2 trillion over 10 years. And sometimes you look around the country and go, where did $2 trillion go? Where is all the infrastructure? Why don't we have more? And I think it does, a lot of this money gets eaten up in again, the permitting and the consultants. And I want to see more of the money go, you know, to turn dirt. That's what we have to focus on. And if we do that, I think there should be money for all of our projects. But if it gets eaten up just by the consultant class, all of us lose. All of our communities lose because you don't have the resources to build your bridge that can't take a busload of kids.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your commitment to rural America. Sometimes we're flyover and our voice isn't heard. And UAVs. Yeah, I was a Navy SEAL. I've been dealing with UAVs for 2004. And by and large, the FAA has not moved on airspace in 2 decades. Well, the rest of the world is. And as you know, UAVs are incredibly important for efficiency on pipeline surveys, on wildlife surveys, on agriculture and precision, and yet we're still line of sight. I understand I understand that there's complications in safety, but if you don't fly, there's no risk. And that's more or less where the FAA has been for years and years and years. Are you committed to looking at technology and integrating UAVs into the NAS?
So I'm excited about this. I would just say stay tuned. Very short order, you're going to see the work that we've been doing. So that's going to happen. But absolutely, this is new technology. We actually have to have rules that allow it to be deployed. And deployed safely. By the way, this gets to be, I mean, again, you see what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. these are tools for commerce, they're tools for industry, but they also can be tools of war. And so thinking through how we do it with the military, what's the military side and what's the commerce side, and navigating that effectively is really important. But again, if we don't allow this technology here, it'll be developed in the rest of the world and then used here. And you don't want drone technology from somewhere else flying in American airspace. So I'm with you on that. And by the way, and beyond visual line of sight, I mean, people are getting coffees now by drone, or there are Amazon packages delivered by drone. We want to have, again, one national standard on how these companies can deploy across the country. And just on the air traffic control upgrade that we're going to do, it's going to bring more efficiency to the airspace, so you can integrate these eVTOLs, and you can integrate drone technology as well. So the airspace is going to get more complicated. You can't navigate it with what we have today, but what we're going to build, we can accommodate what you're talking about.
And just outside a comment, if you are going to move the Merchant Marines, I think is a magnificent experience. It's the highest paid undergraduate degree in this country is Merchant Marines. And by the way, you graduate the academy, you can cross-deck to any other commission source. It's a great academy. But if you are going to move it, I would suggest the United States Navy, not the United States Marine Corps. With that, I yield back.
Duly noted. But just head note, if you have a young person that wants to consider going, they're getting the kids that are graduating are making $150,000 to $180,000 working 6 months a year, or maybe a month on, month off. But it's really good money because they're highly skilled. Good point. I don't want to give them up, by the way. I want to keep them. So, but
And if Mr. Chairman, if you could just allow me another second, and also in the Merchant Marine Academy, because they do rotate 4 on, 4 off, 4 weeks on, 4 off. They're in Montana, the kids that do it. Best hunting season, best fishing season, best summer. It's the greatest job ever. I'd like to be a Merchant Marine.
it's right after Wisconsin.
Preceding paid for by the Visitors Bureau of the great state of Montana. Mr. Siscomani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Duffy, for being here. I also want to welcome Mr. Tim and Sherry Lilly for being here, and sorry for your loss. Something we want to address and make sure that none of that happens ever again. Mr. Secretary, I remember the first conversation we had. This is back when I was considering this job, and you called and you said, from a father of 6 when I took this job to another father of 6, you can do it. And you even said that you had more kids when you were on the job. I didn't follow that example. I stayed at 6, but it was great knowing you then and meeting you and understanding your passion for families and for our country and what drives you, I think drives many of us in this committee as well. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to start by addressing an issue that is a top priority for everyone here in the subcommittee, obviously, which is aviation safety. And we've been talking about that quite a bit. I really appreciate the prioritization you give this issue in your budget request, and want to highlight a tragic incident that happened in my district. You may be aware of it. On February 19th of this year, 2 small aircraft crashed mid-air, resulting in the death of 2 individuals in Marana, Arizona. It is critical that the federal government works to ensure that something like this never occurs again. I know that's your focus and passion. So can you talk a little bit about, provide an update on how your budget proposal will ensure incidents like this do not occur again, especially in smaller rural airports that are regional and with less resources?
That was tragic. This was in an uncontrolled airspace. So controllers don't control every aspect of the airspace. A lot of the small airports, like in Hayward, Wisconsin, where I'm from, oftentimes it's done by pilots and visually and staying away from each other. And so, and by the way, I don't think general aviation would like air traffic controllers to control every aspect of the airspace. They do like the freedom of movement, but it then creates risks like we saw in your community where 2 planes collided midair. But that's a conversation of what should that role be? Should it be expanded? I'm happy to have that. And I don't know what
the resources part of it of how and in the budget how it addresses some of this.
The resources are this is all inclusive, and again, it's the infrastructure and it's the manpower of air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
And this is what we've been talking about, and we want to work with all of you to pressure test the numbers that we're thinking about. It's important, but it's also what we're seeing. I mean, as Mr. Quigley noted, in Chicago, we had a near miss with the Southwest airplane. And it was, I would think it would be the next, the FlexJet wasn't paying attention to the air traffic controller. But I do think we need our pilots to pay attention. this can be very dangerous, and a lot of the pilots who fly commercially take people's lives in their hands, and it is a serious business, and we want to make sure that all of them are taking it that way. Another thing that we need in part of rural America, we got to think through how we're building out the infrastructure of towers and TRACONs. If I think on average we build one a year, it's going to take us 400 years to replace all of the towers and TRACONs in this country. We want to up that. We'd like to do 4 or 5 a year. I mean, up the speed to update the old infrastructure. And a lot of you have those facilities around your districts that need work. And so if we could start the process every year, getting 4 or 5 of them done, I think would be well on the way.
Thank you. On the same line of resources, another incident that happened in Arizona, the New Mexico border as well, is the train carrying cars of hazardous materials fell off the tracks. This was back in last April of last year. It caught fire, and several Arizona and New Mexico residents, as well as Navajo Nation tribal members, had to be evacuated from their homes. Not only was this impactful and negatively to the economy, but also to just posing major health concerns and issues here. So also on the budget and resources side, in terms of freight and rail, can you speak a little bit on that aspect as well?
Yeah, so again, I'm not familiar exactly with the one incident that you're referencing, but I think all of us heard of East Palestine. And again, I do think as we think through FRA and PHMSA and looking at how products that can be dangerous are moving across the rail, how we navigate the rail, what safety policies and procedures we have in place. You're seeing some very exciting advancement in technology around rail. That again, what we might miss by the human eye, the technology is picking up, and we're actually able to deploy resources and deploy fixes before a derailment could happen. And I think that's critical. Using the manpower along with the technology is going to, I think, bring us more safety.
Thank you so much. I do want to just also thank you for the I-10 completion and process that we want to be sure that we complete here on the widening and the grants. That's a very important highway for not only Arizona, but the entire nation. And look forward to hosting you in Arizona soon. Maybe it's not as cool in the summer as Montana, but any other time of the year will be great to visit you.
It's pretty awesome in January.
Yes, it is. We'll see you then. Thanks.
Mr. Strong.
Thank you, Chairman Womack and Ranking Member Clyburn, for holding this important hearing today. It's an honor to serve with each of you. I also want to thank our subcommittee staff for all of their hard work. Secretary Duffy, thank you for being here today and for your work and dedication to our nation and for making yourself available to members of Congress. As you know, my district, Huntsville, Alabama, is home to Redstone Arsenal, which is the premier aerospace, ballistic missile, law enforcement, and military asset located in North Alabama. More than 50,000 military members, contractors, and public servants commute to Redstone Arsenal, and the second largest research park in the country, every day. Secretary Duffy, can you tell us how your agency plans to invest in the projects surrounding key national security installations such as Redstone Arsenal?
Are we talking ports?
Roads, airports, ports,
Yeah, so
we got it all.
I can't tell you specifically around that facility, but I'd be happy to discuss what the needs are with you to, again, calculate those needs and resources and
Thank
further
you.
the conversation.
Alabama's 5th Congressional District is also home to Huntsville International Airport, which I'm proud to say was just named the #1 best small airport for the second year in a row. It serves 1.47 million passengers annually and has the second longest runway in the southeast United States, and is the only FAA licensed commercial space reentry site in the United States. Small hub airports such as Huntsville International Airport are a vital link in the national air transportation system, and their success is crucial for connectivity and regional economic development. Secretary Duffy, can you share with us how your agency is working with small hub airports to better understand their specific regulatory and operational challenges?
Yeah, listen, I think we look across the country at what facilities we have in place and what needs each of those facilities have based on the number of people, the number of flights they serve. And so specifically in Huntsville, we'd be happy to discuss that further with you. But again, we have to go through a priority list of of what are the oldest infrastructure that we have in regard to airports, and how do we effectively use the money that you give us to do the appropriate upgrades and think long-term what project comes at what time. So if you have special needs in your community, I would be happy to discuss those with you.
Thank you. Do you have the resources needed to help ensure that small hub airports can effectively access and utilize federal funding?
Well, I think we can always use more money. I don't know that you guys all want to give, but you know what? We are going to do more with less. And again, I have to, just if I'm honest with you, I'm sure the FAA has done this. I have been in the 106 days or 5 days that I've been here, we have been focused on a couple of big issues with regard to what's wrong with the national airspace, how do we control it, what's happening with controllers. We dealt with multiple incidents from what happened at DCA to what happened in Alaska and Toronto, the mid-air collision that Mr. Siscomani mentioned. I think it was the Motley Crew plane also crashed in Arizona. So there's been a lot of aviation. I'll go back and talk to the FAA about specific needs across the country.
Thank you. As you know, timing and predictability are critical to efficient airport capital planning. Could you talk a little bit about the department, what the department is doing to provide consistency and transparency in the timing of funding awards, especially for small to mid-sized airports?
Yeah, I know that we just got a big tranche of grants out from the FAA, again, across the country for airport improvements. But again, as I mentioned throughout the hearing, the backlog is substantial that was passed off to me. A lot of announcements, a lot of celebration with the announcements, but that's the easy part. The work is actually getting the grant agreements done, and we're going through that now, and we're going to get there. We're working at it, and we're going to get more announcements as each month goes by. But it's taking time just because of the volume that was left for me.
Thank you. In addition to commercial aviation, my district is also home to the Port of Huntsville. This is a multimodal hub that integrates air cargo, rail, and industrial development around the Jetplex Industrial Park. The Jetplex Industrial Park supports hundreds of aerospace, automotive, and advanced manufacturing industries. Over 400 companies rely on this port to provide timely and efficient service to their operations and supply chain. How is your department prioritizing and investing in projects that will strengthen and safeguard key domestic supply chain and logistic hubs?
Yeah, this body, I believe, gave us the FLOW initiative, so we're able to get companies to coordinate shippers with the industry to coordinate what kind of needs are going to be in the system, and it's multimodal. And again, those tools actually have been working very well that the Congress gave us. And we're trying to expand that, but industry loves it. And again, planning for the needs that we have throughout the country and the capacity excess and shortfalls is, I think, critical. And the tool that, again, this body has given the department, I think, has been working very, very well. And again, we want to grow it.
Thank you. Chairman Womack, I yield back.
Thank you, Dale. That completes our first round of questions, and I did say earlier in the hearing that we'd have a second round if somebody wanted to. I'm going to waive any opportunity that I might take to ask another question, but if there is anybody on the dais that does have a desire to ask another question or get a quick response, I'd be willing to recognize them. I'd yield first to Mr. Clyburn, the ranking.
I'm gonna follow your lead, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, the full committee chairman, Mr. Cole.
One quick point we didn't have a chance to cover, but I would just ask you, as you put things together, you take a strong look at. We made a lot of progress here in FY24 on tribal roads, and we actually went back, and there have been no hearings on tribal roads or tribal housing for 20 years. And we'd seen how tribal roads and tribal housing had fallen behind in that period. I've spent a lot of time on Native American reservations. I know in Wisconsin you know a lot about Native Americans, but the federal obligation here, and it's a relatively small part of your budget, it's around 1%, so we're not talking about something massive, but some money here makes a difference. And this committee and frankly administrations on bipartisan basis have overlooked this area for a generation. And believe me, it is really bad in some of these places. You're thinking you're not in a third world country, you're in the wilderness. So I would just ask you, I know you got to make some tough funding decisions, and we're going to try and be supportive of those, and we're going to try and help you in other ways. But please take a special look at that. Don't let it get lost over there, because that's what tends to happen. It's sort of out of sight, out of mind. And I've watched generations of politicians on both sides of the aisle and administrations do that. This committee made a big step forward in 24 and would have again in 25 had the bill happened. And so I don't want to lose that momentum. So if you just consider that as you go about all the many decisions you have to make, I'd be very grateful.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I understood the housing needs and the infrastructure needs across the tribal lands in the country. Senator Ben Ray Lujan mentioned it as well, and I think we should work together on thinking how we can spend money well and where the most needs are. Because you're right, it's not third world. Oftentimes, it is wilderness, and I think again a lot of some places you may not need the investments, but there's other places that truly need the investment and they haven't received it. So I'll work with you on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Torres.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Oops. Seems like all the equipment is faulty around here. Once again, I would like to go back to our conversation over the closure of the FSMA, or it has not been closed. The lease is supposed to expire in August. But I would like to have more information about the assessment that was done to come up with a decision that it would be a good decision to close this facility, given the fact that the nearest facility is 1,000 miles away. I also, for the record, Chairman, I like to include this AP article dated February 19th of 2025.
Without objection.
That talks about the 400 personnel. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to hand this over to you, Mr. Secretary, just so you know. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to ask the tough questions. No one wants to see planes crashing. No one wants to be that person who receives that call. No one wants to be in this position when 200 or 60 or whatever number of people either perish or planes continue to crash. So all I am asking is for us to take a step back and look at the massive work that you have ahead of you. And I want to recognize that you have massive job ahead of you. But given the fact that DOJ has come in and made decisions probably without even communicating those decisions with you, I want to believe that we are in all of this, all of us are in this together, and it's going to take all of us to push back to ensure that positions, whether they're air traffic controllers or the people fixing the equipment behind the scenes, just because we don't see them or hear from them doesn't mean that they're not critical positions. So with that, I'm going to yield back, and I look forward to continuing this conversation with you.
On your facility, I will get briefed on that and coordinate with you and get back to you. So I don't have a good answer for you right now.
No, I understand.
And in regard to the 400, again, I think maybe I misunderstood. I thought you were saying they were air traffic controllers, and they're not. I don't know what the reference was.
Yeah.
And if I could just make one, there are 46,000 employees at the FAA. It's a huge agency. A lot of them do good work, but if I can do things more efficiently in some spaces, I want to do that. But there are critical safety missions that we have, and I'm going to make sure those folks not only stay, but we build upon that. And to your point, this is not partisan. Air traffic control, what we have to do, it's an American problem. Everyone I've talked to on both sides of the aisle are like, well, how do we work together? And I think that's the mentality we're going to have to embrace each other and serve everyone who flies, our families, our neighbors, our communities, and I look forward to working with all of you on how we do that together, because it is, this is not a partisan, it's an American moment.
We want you to succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I yield back.
Great hearing this morning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. We look forward to your continued leadership and a partnership as we continue to achieve the shared goals that we all have, and that is for the to be the gold standard of a transportation network throughout. And your leadership will be vital to that end. The lady to my left, who keeps the clock and takes all the required notes and keeps me pointed in the right direction, is Avery Pearson. She is typical of the professional staff members that you saw behind us here today, scattered throughout this room, and I am eternally grateful for them. They, as you know, Mr. Duffy, they are the unsung heroes of the Congress because they do such remarkable work, and with no expectation of anything in return except, a regular paycheck. So thank you, Avery, and to all of those who are behind me that do this great work. Tim, Sherry, we are grateful you are here. You've honored us with your presence, and your loss is unimaginable. And we in the American public grieve with you. And again, we recommit ourselves to making sure that what happened never happens again. And your participation in this hearing this morning says a lot about you and your family and about your son. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here today. Mr. Clyburn, any closing remarks?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I, too, wish to thank the Lilly family for being here today. On that particular day, I think it was 67 people in both aircraft lost their lives. One of whom, and I've heard from several of those families, one of whom was a young lady who was landing in Washington to accept a job, a new job. It's a law professor at Howard University. Her story I think about a lot. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being here. As you know, I represent the entire peninsula of Charleston. When I came to Congress, the primary economy in South Carolina was driven by two T's, textiles and tobacco. Today, it is still driven by two T's, but now it's tourism and transportation. And I would hope that as we work together toward the future, that we would take into stock that the Department of Transportation is very important to this country, very important to us in South Carolina, but it does not operate in a silo. It operates, hopefully in conjunction with our trade representatives, with our Department of Commerce, because we are suffering in South Carolina. Just recently, Volvo just announced a layoff at that facility. It's the only Volvo facility in this country, but they're laying off because they can't get their parts they need from other countries because of tariffs. BMW, Mercedes-Benz make all of their popular HBCUs, whatever we call it, in North Charleston, South Carolina, in my district. So this is very, very important for us to make sure the Department of Transportation is functioning in a way that would benefit the future of our great country and do so in such a way that we utilize all of our resources and our talents to make this country greater. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Ranking Member, I would welcome your invitation to come to Charleston. We could even invite former Chairman Trey Gowdy to join us as well. I look forward to it.
Well, Trey's a good buddy. We don't agree on much politically. In fact, I guess I'm as close to the governor of South Carolina as one could possibly be. And we don't agree on anything politically, but we are good friends because we believe in the future of South Carolina and all South Carolinians. You bet.
And on that note, staff members are reminded that questions for the record should be submitted to subcommittee staff within 7 days. Thanks again to everybody for your participation in this hearing. This subcommittee stands adjourned.